Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That is Nick Wright. Sarah Kustok is with us this morning.
What up, Kustok? How are you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You're tan. You're tan. I'm tan.
Yeah.
We're all tan.
It's the a little post Super Bowl time.
I like it. We're glowing this morning.
Lots to do.
If we do say so ourselves. Greg Jennings is going to stop by in a little bit to talk about the latest Dak Prescott contract news. But we are going to start this morning in the NBA with a little good news, bad news for the Philadelphia 76ers. Bad news is Ben Simmons will reportedly miss an undetermined amount of time due to a back injury, with a more concrete timeline most likely coming later today. Good news, Joel Embiid is still on the team. The Sixers' big man went off for a career-high 49 points last night to go along with 14 rebounds. Philly topped Atlanta 129-112 in the process. Nick, you trust Joel Embiid to carry the Sixers with Ben Simmons out for who knows how long at this point?
Well, if there's ever a time for your second best player to suffer an injury, for Philly, now would be the time. Over the next 10 games, they play 7 games against bottom feeders in the league. They have 2 games in LA against the 2 LA teams, but those games are sandwiched around Cleveland, the Knicks, the Kings, the Warriors, Detroit, Washington. So I think Philly's not going to plummet in the standings. They might actually rise a bit in the standings because they're in that quagmire in the middle of the Eastern Conference. But I want Joel Embiid to be one of my favorite players. Going into this year, I thought he would be one. I thought when you go 27.5, 14 rebounds a game last year and your team is this close to maybe making the NBA Finals, certainly this close to making the Eastern Conference Finals, I expected Joel to take the next step and if you're going 28 and 14, the next step's 30 and 15, and that is the step where you are one of the 3 best players in the league, maybe the best player in the league. And instead, he took a step back. And instead, he flirts with the idea he's the best player in the world and then gets embarrassed by the actual best player in the world. And then against a terrible Atlanta defense, he shows you all the different things he can do. And he preens and he does his Joel Embiid stuff, which I actually really like. If you are getting not 49 every night, but if you know what you're going to get from him every night. So that's a long way to not answer your question. Do I trust Joel Embiid? The answer is no, I don't trust him. I want to trust him, and I know how good he can be. And when he's feeling great, Sarah, he can do things like this and he can be one of the most fun players in the league. But to be one of the 5 or 6 best players in the world, which he should be, you need a level of consistency that at this point in his career he hasn't demonstrated, certainly not this season.
And I would say that is partly because of health and just not knowing how much he's going to be on the floor. To me, I can't necessarily rely on this Philadelphia team as a whole. And when you ask, can you rely on Joel Embiid to help them take a deep playoff run or a playoff run? I think the biggest question has always been about this team. They've got such a high upside, but the fit between Joel and Ben Simmons. I love Joel Embiid as a player. I love Ben Simmons as a player. I don't love them together as a player. And I think a lot of people, you look at the numbers even, and it's amazing that you have 2 extraordinary players that on the floor together, the numbers are so different than when they are on the floor on their own. I think the one positive for Philadelphia, take a look, I think getting home court and getting one of those top 4 seeds, or the 4 seed, I should say, they're a half game now behind Miami.
Right.
It's going to be critical. Both you could say it about Miami and Philadelphia, but play so much better at home than they do on the road. Additionally, I kind of like this I don't know if Elton Brand in the front office of Philadelphia is looking at it. I kind of like the fact they're going to have an opportunity to take a look at the team and what it looks like without Ben Simmons.
So that's really the most important part of this because, and I know that's where you were going to go, Jenna, because the Sixers, listen, the season's not over, but their championship, to me, aspirations are. Like, this is going to be a lost season. I wonder what it means for Brett Brown. And I know today, after a day when Joel scores 49, it's not what Philly fans want to hear, but it's the reality of the situation. The silver lining for them is the Brett Brown decision this summer might be an easy one. Should we move on from one of our 2 foundational pieces is a much, much more difficult one. but you are now going to get a free look. You are now going to get a free look at what could this team be if we moved Simmons, which to me is the far more likely piece to be moved. I think moving Joel would be insane because he does have league MVP upside and because his issue is health and maybe conditioning as opposed to a refusal to do a fundamental basketball thing like shoot the basketball. And so to see the Philly team without Simmons for a month, when Joel knows it is time for a playoff push, what Joel and Tobias Harris look like as a 1-2 punch when Tobias is paid like he should be able to be a competent secondary option, what the team looks like where it has more spacing in crunch time because whomever is out there playing de facto point guard is going to give you more spacing than Ben did. I think that actually could be very instructive for the team as far as their future plans because I don't see them having the ability to go on a deep playoff run this year even if Simmons comes back healthy.
And to me, Joel looks like, sorry to cut you off, Jenna, a more motivated player when Ben Simmons is not on the floor with him. And I think to your point, just the question too about this team with Jimmy Butler having been gone, who's the closer? Who's the go-to guy at the fourth quarter? I think this unlocks a lot of the potential of some of these other players and how they attack things in the closing minutes of games when Ben Simmons isn't available. And I'll say it again, I love Ben Simmons as a player. I think he's going to continue to improve, continue to get better. But I think in the construct of what this roster looks like with Philadelphia, it is very hard to maximize both he and Joel to the best of their ability.
And that's why it's a blessing in disguise. You talk so much, what's the problem with this team? They're so inconsistent. Joel Embiid, so inconsistent. Some nights he'll score whatever it was, 49. Other nights he'll come out and score nothing. Now you finally get a chance to see, like you said, what he can do without Ben Simmons on the court. There was one little black mark, though, on the Sixers win last night. With the game out of reach, Embiid trying to run out the clock, gets the ball stolen by Kevin Huerter. He didn't like that. Gave him the business.
Well,
he gave him the middle finger. I know the finger, Goose. After the game, he did walk it back, though.
I also want to say sorry for what I did at the end of the game. Y'all probably saw that on TV. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Wait, was he sorry for giving the middle finger because of the action or that he did it on television?
Yeah, because he did it on television. Go ahead, Jenna. You were about to say.
No, I was just... Go ahead.
Okay, this is one of those things where I know what I'm supposed to do is scold Joel Embiid. I do not care. I do not know why anyone would care. Here's the thing about the middle finger, which for some reason we have to blur on television because if you are, the only argument is what about the kids? What about the kids? I'm so worried about the kids. If the kids are old enough to know what that means, they're old enough to go home and not have nightmares about it. I mean, do
you mind that Kevin Huerter stole that ball? Do you care about anything?
I care about it. To me, Kevin Huerter stealing the ball is something you're not supposed to do, and flipping a guy off on the court something you're not supposed to do. They are both traffic tickets. You don't even get handcuffs put on you for it. It is to me as minor of a thing as you possibly can have. Like I know I'm supposed to be mad about it. This is the type of thing I can't pretend to be angry about it. I think there are a lot of people that on television will be mad about it, and then off the air like, I don't care. But I'm not going to be that. Listen, Joel, I think this is one of the fun things about Joel Embiid, that if he gave us more consistent play would be more endearing than when it's...
But he's supposed to be the guy. It's his team. It's his team. He's the guy. You can't be... You don't like something at the end of the game. You're going to flip him off? That's where the league's going? Curse him out next thing?
I don't want to change the top. I was more interested right before him apologizing. He kind of walked back the fact that he said he was the best player in the world. The beginning part of that interview, Serena Winters, who does a great job on the Philadelphia sideline, she said, so greatest player in the world? And he said, well, I meant on any given night, and there's a lot of great players, and that's what I was. I'm like, Joel, if you're going to say it, say it. Well, you just scored 49.
And if you do listen back to the first time he said it, it was, you can understand the context of he was kind of prodded along saying it the first time, and so I understood that him trying to walk it back tonight a bit, especially because of what just happened against the actual best player in the world, Giannis. But listen, the middle finger, you say his next thing are they going to do is curse him out? Yes, Jenna. That happens in every NBA game all the time.
How often, too, do we see the verbalization of what the finger means?
Course.
That, like, to me, that's
to the referees.
Sorry, you're not getting me off this corner. You can't just be giving guys the finger in the middle of a televised game. You can't do it.
Well, quite literally, you can, because he did. And the question is, does it bother me? The answer is no. Like, again, what about the children? I'm so concerned about the children. The children will be fine, America. Like, there's going to be no.
Come on, there's some standards in the league to uphold. You play, you're grown men. This is your job. Something doesn't go your way, you give him the finger.
But he was. I feel like it was clearly in jest. It was clearly it was at the end of a game. I mean, this is the type of thing that will never bother me. It will never bother me. Do you think Kevin Huerter's feelings were hurt?
No.
Like, does Kevin Huerter need
and
like
he doesn't regret it, and I don't mind that Kevin Huerter did that.
No,
All right, I'll be alone on this corner. I'll let you guys have
protect the children.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you ever had muscle pain? I'm talking stop you in your tracks, will never work out again. What am I going to do kind of pain? This is the kind of pain Dr. Jason Wersland was in when he created Theragun, the deep muscle massager that's unlike anything you've ever felt. Theragun isn't a cheap massager that just tickles your muscles. Their handheld percussive device uses a scientifically calibrated combination of speed, depth, and power to release the deepest muscle tension. Whether you want to treat your muscle tension from working out, an injury, or just everyday life, you can use Theragun. Theragun is the preferred muscle recovery device for over 250 professional sports teams and used by hundreds of thousands of satisfied customers around the world to reduce pain, increase range of motion, and soothe aching muscles. Try Theragun risk-free for 30 days or your money back by going to Theragun.com/cadence. For a limited time, our listeners get a free charging stand with a purchase, a $79 value. That's Theragun.com/cadence, Theragun.com/cadence.
Moving on to the best player on the Nets not to have played for the Nets yet, Kevin Durant. Still rehabbing, still working his way back to basketball, and still dealing with his time in the Bay Area. Durant won 2 Finals MVPs in just 3 seasons with Golden State. So when KD decided on Brooklyn, I guess you could say it left Warriors owner Joe Lacob slightly perplexed.
I can't get mad when Kevin Durant, who I felt pretty close with, decides he's going to leave.
Right.
Which to me made no sense. Like, you're the best organization, I hope he thinks, in the world, or maybe winning. Other great players. I mean, the new arena. To me, there was like every reason in the world to stay, but I'm not going to be mad at him because, it's his life and he earned the right. And for whatever reason, he decided he wanted to leave. I can't control that.
All right, Sarah, this is your corner. You cover the Nets. What was your reaction to what Joe Lacob had to say?
My first reaction in hearing his comments are, what else is Joe Lacob going to say? Of course he feels that way, and he's done a great job, along with the other ownership, of putting together a really solid organization in Golden State, the type of team that they have. You look at not only what they've done in terms of winning and the roster they've compiled, but also just the front office consistency, the head coach and Steve Kerr, the new arena, which I have not been to yet, will be out there in a couple weeks, but by all accounts, it is first class and a beautiful place to play. If you get to be in the Bay, you get to be in San Francisco, and all the things. It's an attractive place for any free agent. I think when it comes to Kevin Durant, though, he wanted a change and he wanted something different. He spoke multiple times about just his decision and why it felt like it was time for him to try something new. And I think with any player, and I feel strongly about this, when you are a free agent, you have the agency to choose what you want, where you want to be, get a different experience. And so for Joe Lacob to say that, I feel like it's the obvious statement, because you've done everything you can to try and make this a place that someone like Kevin Durant, someone that, throughout the course of what that group has done, you want to continue. But to me, it's not surprising.
Well, so I agree it's not surprising, and there's only one part of Joe Lacob's comment that I take any issue with. The vast majority of it he was pitch perfect on, and obviously it runs in in absolute opposition to famously what Dan Gilbert said about LeBron when LeBron left a decade ago and scorched earth. Joe Lacob said, of course he has the right, we wish him the best, said all the right things in that regard. The one part that I take issue with is maybe the wrong word, that I disagree with, is where he said I felt close to Kevin, I felt like I knew Kevin. Well, if you felt close to Kevin, felt like you knew Kevin, then this move absolutely couldn't have made no sense. This move I don't know Kevin at all personally, but I know enough people close to Kevin and know enough about Kevin that this move made so much sense. We were telegraphing it 18 months before he made it. Steve Kerr was worried that this could happen at the end of year 2. Kerr knew it was going to happen once they were into year 3. Now, I was not expecting him to pick your Brooklyn Nets. I thought he was going to pick the New York Knicks. But for Kevin Durant, let me do something I don't do very often in the show. Let me tirelessly defend Kevin Durant here. For him, what he wanted, what he wants to accomplish, it was the perfect decision. It was the clear-cut right decision. He had done all he had come to do in Golden State, and he realized that despite the winning and the success and the finals MVPs and the shots over LeBron, there was still, I don't want to say an emptiness because that feels too dark. There was still a hole left to fill in his basketball soul, so to speak. So he's got to go try to fill it somewhere else. And God bless him, I hope he does, because he has another mountain to climb. And you can have the greatest mountain in the world. What's the one in Seattle everyone loves? Rainier? Like, it's probably okay. Maybe that's the most beautiful mountain in the world. Once you've climbed it 3 times, maybe you go to a less attractive one because you've never climbed it. And he's trying to climb a new mountain that for him is the only box left to check. And I know people get annoyed when analysts say this, but one title in Brooklyn absolutely would mean more than 2 more in Golden State. And I think KD knows that.
I think on top of it, too, Kevin Durant wanted to play with some of his best friends. Like, the idea that who you surround yourself with, as I know the two of you know very well, have the wonderful opportunity to work with one another every morning. Best of friends.
BFF. Best friends forever.
But that's a factor. And I think from the outside, a lot of times people don't fully understand how entrenched you are with the people with your team. Showing up every morning, whether it's rehab, whether it's practice, on the road, this becomes your family. And so this is something which, I know it's been said that they had talked about during the time between him and Kyrie Irving and DeAndre Jordan when they were playing with Team USA, how incredible would it be if we all played together. But you also, and I'll say this from the inside, looking at a well-structured organization that also has a beautiful arena, that also has a great practice facility, that's in a different market that Kevin Durant
also in an awesome
to
city.
be in. You're in New York City.
Yeah.
He's a businessman as well. So there was a variety of aspects that I think you could point to as you have that this was a decision for Kevin Durant that certainly makes a lot of sense.
Yes, but also yes, Kevin Durant's a quirky guy, and he's a fickle guy, and he's seemingly unsatisfied all the time. We kind of question the move from OKC to go play for a team that just beat you. We scratched our heads a little bit, but now you kind of get it. He's going to do things on his own timeline, in his own heart, the way he wants to do it. I don't know why Joe Lacob was totally surprised by this. The move to come to his team was a little bit surprising as well.
It comes from, and this can be a loaded term, so I don't mean it in a bad way, it comes from a place of privilege. Joe Lacob basically saying, how could anyone not want us? Which really is, how could anyone not want me? I'm the light years ahead owner. I'm the owner that put this whole thing together. I'm the owner that saw the writing on the wall that you could come here initially. All we did was win, then win again, then be in position potentially to win again, and then just get cut down by injury after injury after injury. There's no reason to think that as soon as you and Clay were healthy, we would be, if KD had stayed, the Warriors obviously this year would be a mess anyway because Clay and KD wouldn't be playing, but they would go into next year, no matter what Giannis does in the finals this year, no matter what LeBron does in the finals this year, they would go into next year as the overwhelming favorites, even if Clay and KD hadn't played basketball since last NBA Finals. So Joe Lacob, there's an element of, and I don't know his whole life story, but he hasn't had, I would imagine, a lot of people in business say, nah, bro, I'm good. You know what I mean? I'm fine on the other side of this. And so I understand his personal pride being wounded. But, Jenna, you're absolutely right. Kevin Durant went to Golden State, and we didn't, for me, I shouldn't say we, I didn't like it from a competitive balance standpoint, from a just regular competition standpoint, from an NBA history standpoint. But if what he thought was, my number one goal is the quickest possible path to a championship and to play in a smarter offense, then it makes perfect sense in that regard. And if his next number one goal is to expand his business empire on the East Coast, if LeBron's set up on the West Coast, and to try to win a championship where he will unquestionably be the guy for a franchise that has never won one, certainly has never, they've been to the 2 finals with Kidd, but doesn't have a championship history and no one on the team has a championship pedigree other than his buddy Kyrie, then of course the move makes perfect sense. And so that's the part where Lacob, I think it probably is just a bad turn of phrase by him. I can't imagine the day of free agency, Sarah, he thought KD was coming back.
And that's where there's a difference between I was surprised and it doesn't make sense.
Yep.
And so maybe he was not surprised, but in continuing to reflect on it still does not make sense to him.
So much talk about Tyson Wilder 2. It looks like we're going to get Tyson Wilder, the trilogy. Deontay Wilder, coming off his loss to Fury, has decided to use his rematch clause, which means they will fight again. But if you expect a big entrance this time around, think again. Wilder said that 45-pound, somewhat ridiculous costume that he wore on his way to the ring over the weekend weakened his legs and impacted his fighting ability. Nick, I'm sensing by your
so much.
Crazy laughter. Truth or excuse?
Listen.
Truth or excuse?
Here's what weakened his legs. When he got what would have been? Right here? So it would have been the right hand to his left ear that totally ruined his equilibrium. That's what weakened his legs. But this is an all-time great excuse. I love it so much because, A, prove it's not true. Like, prove it. He can go to his grave saying it was this 45-pound outfit that weakened my legs, and he can tell everyone that. And this is in line with boxing, the annals of boxing, of a guy gets whooped and then says, wait, what? Dragonfly Drones, a great follow on Twitter, brought this up last night, and I had forgotten about it. You remember the No Mas fight? Roberto Duran, Sugar Ray Leonard, one of the most famous fights ever, when Sugar Ray is just beating Roberto Duran so badly, he quits. No mas, can't do it anymore. After the fight, Roberto Duran said what happened was, I had a hot cup of tea and then a cold cup of water, and it ruined me.
Messed my system
He said it was hot tea, cold water, can't do it, that's why I lost. As opposed to Sugar Ray Leonard annihilating you. We all watched what Tyson Fury did to him. Mm-hmm. No one believes it's because of this costume, but I love it. I think it is an all-time great post-fight excuse. And so is it an excuse or is it the truth? I'd say both. I'd say in his mind, he has convinced himself it's the truth, maybe because his mind is still not right from the beating Tyson Fury put on him. And so, yeah, I say it's the excuse and the truth, Greg Jennings.
Yeah, this is a big-time excuse. And what I don't like about it is right after the fight, he gets interviewed and he talks about not having any excuses. But then we come out with this, and maybe it did weigh him down. But here's my problem. Like, that wasn't the first time he tried this on. Like, he knew how much it weighed. Right. Prior to walking in making his grand entrance. But prior to even the fight, he was pacing back and forth for at least an hour. Like, get off your legs. You don't think that had anything to do with it?
I actually think the pacing had as much to do with it as the costume. What had to do with it was he got hit so hard in his ear it was bleeding.
Absolutely. And it completely throws off your equilibrium anytime you've been hit like that.
Here's what else it does. It throws off your ability to put cohesive sentences together 24 hours, 48 hours after the fight. So perhaps we should take everything he's saying with a bit of a grain of salt. There's no doubt the guy's probably got some sort sort of
I think this is a
concussion.
cogent thought by him, and it's his only possible path to an
That's
excuse.
it.
He's activating the, as you mentioned, the
rematch clause. Yep.
And I said on this air yesterday that if this fight happens 10 more times, that Tyson Fury wins 10 more times. It's taken me 24 hours to convince myself Deontay Wilder can win. I believe it's because of the punch to the ear and the costume. I'm on Team Wilder once again, even though what I just saw happen. We all knew Wilder could only win by landing one massive right hand. He was in the first fight, Fury was killing him on points until the knockdown in the 12th round. He salvages a draw. In this fight, you could argue Fury won every round. Maybe Wilder won the second. His only chance is to hit him with one massive overhand right, and the equilibrium was thrown off, I think, by the punch to the ear. Maybe by this didn't help. And so if neither of those things happen, the third fight should be a good one.
So let's talk about the third fight. Is that what you want to see? Do you want to see these two get back in a ring together?
I would not mind seeing it. I don't think it's necessary for Wilder. Yes, it is necessary because he feels like he can beat Fury. From my eyes, what my eyes told me watching that boxing match, watching the first one, is Fury is a boxer. Wilder is a bruiser. He's a puncher. And if he gets that punch, if he gets one of those paws on you, you may be out. But Fury believes even if he does get that paw on me, you're going to have to get it on me multiple times because I have gotten up from it once and I will get up from it again. So I think it'll be a good match. I think it would be better than what we saw this last time, which would be necessary.
The fight that everyone needs to see, it would appear, is Fury-Joshua. But these guys signed a contract, and it was in the contract that if Wilder loses, he can activate a rematch clause, and he's activating it. So more power to him. He's not scared. He has now come out and said he didn't want the towel thrown in. He's considering firing his trainer. I think his corner saved him.
100%.
And I think that if there's any criticism of the corner, it's that it wasn't stopped on the stool in the 6th. You know what I mean? That it wasn't stopped. It could have been stopped earlier than it was. But more power to him for wanting to go out and fight him again. There is, though, an element of, you mentioned Fury's a boxer and Wilder's more of a bruiser. And I'm not saying you're wrong on that. But I do think because he got beat so soundly, there has been an overreaction to, well, how good is Deontay Wilder really? The guy turned pro when George W. Bush was president. This was the first time he's ever lost. So, I mean, he's had a pretty good run with his style. It's been pretty successful with his style. He fought him once and knocked him seemingly out cold in the 12th round, and then Fury did an Undertaker and sat up at the 7 count and they ended up having a draw. I think Wilder is a great fighter. Fury does appear to be far ahead of him, at least he did in this fight and for big portions of the first fight. But I'll watch the third one, and then the winner goes and fights Anthony Joshua.
And maybe he learned a lesson. He'll wear a robe next time. A little
totally
silky robe that weighs as much as
like a little Ali.
One little
That's
Ali
it.
robe. Take it off. Not 45 pounds of armor.
Or
just what?
Like Fury.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. He should have mentioned that. I got all this on.
Yep,
he's getting carried in. It's even worse.
So despite using every media opportunity to heap praise on Dak Prescott remains a quarterback without a contract. Stephen Jones recently referred to Dak as their guy, and yet we learned Jones and Dak's agent haven't spoken since September. Greg, how worrisome is this for Dallas?
First off, it is worrisome if this is true. I find it hard to believe that it's true, being in contract negotiations before, that a team isn't going to speak to either yourself or your agent for that long of period of time. I get it. At the beginning of the season, you want to kind of silence everything and let the players play. And even Dak Prescott said, I just want to play it out now.
And there are some teams that once the season starts, they table negotiations.
Yes.
That does happen at times.
They table it for the most part, but it's never really just done. We're not talking about it.
Quarterback position.
Exactly, Jenna. Exactly.
I mean,
the most important position on your roster, and you're telling me no, we're not going to even talk about it. We're not considering even negotiating or coming to a table to meet. I find that hard to believe. everything we've known, everything we've heard has been the Dallas Cowboys want Dak Prescott. He's our guy of the future. So that lets me know they've not only been communicating with Dak Prescott, his team, the guys around him understand where they are. They're just trying to figure out what's going to be the number. That's the question.
And to me, what this signals, it's a little different. To me, what this signals is the number is going to be the franchise tag. Because Lee Sharp pointed this out, and I think it's a really smart point. Everyone knows what a Venn diagram is. There's what I want, there's what you want, and then there's the circle. There's two circles, and then where the intersection is. The only way you don't talk to your quarterback, the most important player on your team, for 6 months is if the last time you talked, you heard what he wanted, you know what you want to offer, and you realized, man, not only is there no intersection in the circles, but we're so far away that even if we come up 20% and he comes down 20%,
that we're not going to
there is still no intersection in the circle. What this tells me is that original report from, I think it was Jane Slater. I like to give credit if I'm right on it. I think it was Jane Slater, the original report back in August, that Dak Prescott wanting 35 to 40 million. That not the report that I think when most of us first saw is like,
we laughed it off.
Give me a break. Not only was that accurate, but that the 35 is probably on the low end of it. The Cowboys must have come in thinking, we're going to pay you just under what Carson Wentz got. And if the Cowboys were thinking 4 years, 120, 30 million a year when Wentz got 4 for 128, and Dak's thinking 4 years, call it 156, which would be, I think, $39 million a year, well then, okay, if we come up to 4 years, 135, if we come up 15 million and you come down 15 million, you're at 4 years, 141, we're still not there. And so this does happen sometimes. You bought a house, you bought a couple houses probably, but when you're going out looking, sometimes you're like, man, I love this house. It's for sale, it's been on the market a long time, I gotta live in this house. And you make your first offer and their counter is 50% more and you're like, okay, well my offer is my offer. There's no sense in continuing. What am I going to raise it $5,000 and you're going to make a difference? To me, if you're a Cowboys fan, this is the first really scary sign that this thing ends with the franchise tag, which, by the way, is what I think they should do to start with. But I think most Cowboys fans want this guy in-house long term.
Greg, which side do you think needs the other one more at this point? Because someone will pay Dak this money. But the Cowboys at this point are this far along and this far vested in Dak and knowing what Dak can do with a guy like Amari and Zeke and the team they have built there. So who needs who more?
I think, honestly, Dak needs the Cowboys more. And the reason why I say that is because we know Jerry Jones wants to win right now. He hired Mike McCarthy to win right now. They have a lot of really good pieces. The quarterback is the one piece that they've been questioning for the last 4 years, really. Mm-hmm. And so if they are still questioning the quarterback situation, they can go and find a quarterback to insert for a period of time until they come to a realization of what we want to do, who that looks like, and how long we're going to put them under contract. So I think Dak Prescott is the odd man right now. He does have leverage because he did play so well, and they want him there, and Mike McCarthy wants to work with him, and he's a young guy that they could build success around, but it hasn't happened. If they had won and made the playoffs, I don't even think we're having this question.
But I wonder if we are. They just make the playoffs. If they go to the conference championship or the Super Bowl, then probably this thing's done. I do wonder if they're far enough away that just making the playoffs wouldn't have been enough. But we talk about Dak Prescott that he's a free agent, but in reality, he's not. In reality, the Cowboys have him under contract for 2 more years, with the second year being a team option. They have him right now. They have a team option on him for about $28 million, and next year they have a team option on him for about $32 million. Those are the franchise tags. So who needs who more? If Dak wants a long-term deal, the Cowboys hold all the cards in this regard, which is why they expect him, I imagine, to come way down from the $35 to $40 million a year. If the Cowboys can do absolutely nothing and guarantee Dak Prescott to their quarterback the next 2 years at a reasonable rate, And so if Dak is willing to play that game, that's fine, and more power to him. But he can be an actual free agent. We talk about him as a free agent. He's not. He can be an actual free agent in 2 years. The Cowboys can have him with no risk financially past this season and then activate that option again next year. That's where the franchise tag complicates this enormously.
And again, this is a copycat league, and we've seen this with Kirk Cousins in Washington.
And look how that ended. Tag, and then he left. Yep, you're right. Here with Sarah Kustok. Sarah, let's talk about Zion for just a second. He's only 12 games into his NBA career.
Can we do it for a little longer than just a second?
Fine, Nick. We'll do it for 12 minutes, and then we'll go to commercial break.
Jenna, how do you deal with him
every day? Well,
basis,
as my BFF. He's only 12 games into his NBA career. He's already turning heads. His numbers have been unreal. His impact has been undeniable. His frame, look, he's a big boy. Listed at 6'6", 284. That might be an undersell. Bill Simmons says he, quote, heard from a reliable source that Zion is actually over 300 pounds at this point. Sarah, is Zion's play sustainable at this weight? If he is 300 pounds, is he able to do this, stay healthy for the long haul?
First of all, he jumps like he's jumping off a trampoline and moves like a ballerina on his feet if it is over 300 pounds. He has been so eye-poppingly impressive. Sustainable, I think, is the right word. I talked to a lot of people throughout the course of the off-season, now this season, from the New Orleans Pelicans organization. And I think for Zion, he's 19 years old. And think about, well, I'm not sure this counts for you, Jenna. I'm not sure this counts for you because I think you were probably so diligent and strict with
your diet. But I know what you mean. It's hard as that
a teenager.
You're coming out of college.
Used to it. You're coming out of college. He was overpowering everyone at Duke throughout the course of, whether it was junior high, high school. Now, I think it's going to be a work in progress. And that's such a major factor in the NBA of all teams having dietitians and having so much of a support staff to try and get guys to be at their peak maximum physical form. And a lot of that, comes from eating. And you look at his body, you look at how he moves, what he can do. He's dense. He's got a density to his game. And so it's not even so much that he's eating vastly unhealthy. I mean, think about the fact that he was injured. So he wasn't getting necessarily those game type of reps. And in that game type of condition, I just think it's going to be a process. I don't think he will stay in this weight. I think it will be a continued push.
But does it matter if he does, is the question. Like, does it matter? Can he play this well at 300 pounds?
I don't know.
He is. Hold on.
I think he could play this well. I do think for the longevity of his career, there's going to be a point. That is a lot of weight to be up and down. I think that he could be this impactful? Yes, but in terms of staying this healthy for year after year, season after season, I do think some of those. Do I think he's still going to be 284? Yeah. Is he going to be 290? But I do think it's going to be a constant focus for him to stay disciplined in what he's eating.
Every single pro athlete, every single NBA star, let me say that, except for the guy we were talking about earlier, Kevin Durant. Their body has undergone a transformation from their rookie season to once everyone was poking fun at Jason Tatum's tattoo because it might be missing an apostrophe. Depends on what you actually want the tattoo to say. Maybe it's a future tense. God's will score for the Celtics, or God's will apostrophe S. But he looks like a cartoon character in a good way. Like his triangular upper back down to a tiny waist. He didn't look like that.
Oh, he turned into a man this year.
Absolutely.
Like you watch him in his physical form on the court.
You know why? Because it's year 3 and because his body filled out. Guys will Zion's body will undoubtedly change. He might grow more because he's only 19 years old. Giannis grew 3 inches from the time he was drafted to right now. But does he need to? Not for the next few years. He is the strongest, most powerful, highest jumping freak in the league with the biggest freaks. And because we've run out of the only thing to do with Zion is watch and marvel. And Jenna, you were sitting across from me 3 years ago when we watched a guy who looked the exact same size do this in high school. He's a big kid. And so, listen, I don't know if he's eating 100 beignets a day, but I think he should do exactly what he's doing because he's come into the league and he has killed everyone. He has dominated it. And there's this element of, well, it can't sustain. Why not? Says who? In what world? Like Barkley's what? The 19th greatest player ever? He was big for a decade, slimmed down at some point.
And I think Barkley has admitted that if he took a little better care of his body, his career might have been a little bit different. He has said that a number of different times. I love the kid. I love watching him. I think today he's spectacular. I think tomorrow he's spectacular. I think the concern people have is years from now, the toll it takes on your knees, the toll it takes on your health, if he doesn't change his body, if his body doesn't change.
I agree. I think he could still be as dominant and continue to do what he's doing at any weight. He has been extraordinary. It has been remarkable to watch the way in which, I said it, how he jumps, how he moves, his rim running, how quickly he gets up the floor. Everything about that. I do think you start to think about your joints.
Give me that ball. Give it to me.
Look at how high he's up and down.
But here's where I disagree with you when you say, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Sarah, where you say he can do it at any weight. I think the weight helps him. I think in a league of shooting and small ball and little guys and finesse, having a big,
what are we talking though? 10
sweaty,
pounds? Or are we to me?
But
there's
what do you
a big
think
difference.
It's like for these guys to guard him? I bet he don't smell that good. He's sweat. He's pouring sweat. You can't get a hold on him because he seems a little rubbery, and he is coming downhill in your face repeatedly. He has to be miserable to guard. Part of that is because of his size. I don't get it.
He's not going to be thin. He's not going to be Kevin Love. To me, he's not going to turn into someone that is not going to have that same force.
He's always going to have the girth. He's always going to have that girth.
So then what? Well, hold on. Two things. One is Kevin Love's a really interesting point.
Because
I didn't think
about his body.
Yeah.
Think about the transformation of Kevin Love.
And think about when he was his best. He was a little chubby. He had 30 rebound games. And now maybe, I don't know what it would have looked like at his older age, but sometimes guys are actual unicorns. Sometimes guys are, no, we've never seen anything like him. And this what people seem to want. Same thing with Lamar Jackson. Well, he's got to change because he's going to get hurt. Maybe. Or maybe he can just keep killing people. And maybe Zion, this idea that, well, he's not going to be able to keep doing it. Can we see?
Does it concern you that he was injured earlier this year?
Do we think if he was 8 pounds lighter, he wouldn't have been? I don't. Because if we are talking about can his knees handle it, then it is a question of major body transformation. It's not, if the knees can handle it at 13% body fat, and it's probably not even that, are we saying they can't handle it at 14.2? I don't. It's
just a small sample size right now, but look, right now he's doing it all, and he's young enough where his body can take the constant pounding night in and night out.
But isn't the sample size his entire basketball life? Isn't this what he did in high school? And then he went to Duke and did it at Duke. And now he's gone to the NBA and he's had one bad game. And since that game, he's scoring 27.5 on 63% shooting. And the shooting percentages matter a lot because he's getting all of his shots at the rim. Whereas here's what Zion needs.
Except for that pretty three.
A little shimmy step back. Here's what Zion needs to work on. His free throws and his jump shot. His free throws and his jump shot are an actual weakness. His body is something I think people want to be, I don't want to say want to, but expect to be a weakness, but I just haven't seen it. I see him miss a free throw, be the first one to the ball, and then use some of that girth and strength to rip the ball away from somebody. And people say with Barkley, well, Barkley wasn't as high of a flyer, so Barkley didn't put the wear and tear on his knees. Yeah, I got it, but Barkley also played 30 years ago without the technology we have today, and he was fine. Zion, I say you change nothing, kid.
You do.
I want us to be able to watch him for years and years and years to come. He's been extraordinary.
What's a beignet? That's like a croissant?
You have not had a beignet?
No.
No, there's some powdered sugar.
I thought it was a bath.
It's like a incredible donut.
Yeah.
Have you been to New Orleans?
There's no way he's had 20 of those. Yeah, I have.
Probably each morning.
Get
my guy Zion. Keep it up, man. Fried foods.
Send us some beignets to New York.
I'll try a beignet. Can you get one here?
That's a great. Dunking on folks' heads.
Back here with Greg Jennings talking NFL draft. So the combine is underway and Joe Burrow is already in the news. his hands measured in at 9 inches. No first-round quarterback has had smaller hands than 9 inches since 2008. And while his stock might be going down, Tua Tagovailoa's might be going up. Pro Football Focus says Tua will be a high-end starter if he is healthy. As for Burrow and his hands, the Heisman winner tweeted yesterday, this is fantastic. Look what he tweeted. Considering retirement after I was informed the football will be slipping out of my tiny hands. Please keep me in your thoughts. It's great. Lean into it.
I love that, Joey. That's great.
All right, Nick, who should be the first pick in the draft? A lot of people have Burrow. You've been on side Tua for a while.
It's not an anti-Joe Burrow take, and I promise it has nothing to do with his tiny, tiny hands. Why
do they have to be tiny, tiny?
Just one tiny.
Well, okay, fair enough. Just his tiny hands, his self-proclaimed tiny hands. The best quarterback in the NFL and the most talented quarterback my eyes have ever laid eyes on, Patrick Mahomes, his hands are a whole quarter of an inch bigger than Joe Burrow's.
9 and a quarter.
9 and a quarter to Joe's 9, and we saw him play, and I understand there's stripes on the college football as opposed to the NFL football, so it's a little different about how much hand size matters. And by the way, you played with two guys with freak show hands, right? Mm-hmm. In Favre and Rodgers, and we have seen, you can talk about this far better than me, we've seen countless highlights of them going back in the pocket, some behemoth coming off their blind side, chopping down on their arm, and somehow the ball not coming loose. So I do think it matters to a degree. But before I knew Joe Burrow's hand size, I would have said Tua, and the answer is multi-layered. One is I think Tua's upside is higher. The other is there does seem to be, for Cincinnati in particular, some murmurs that Joe Burrow maybe wouldn't want to be there. Tua, there is no question he would be thrilled to be anywhere, and he's going to sit the first year. So if you're Cincinnati and you need a total overhaul anyway, having a redshirt year from Tua where you can be bad again is not the worst thing in the world, as opposed to drafting Burrow, who's going to expect to be playing immediately behind a team that needs an overhaul and maybe get beat up a bit. So for a lot of reasons, but most notably, I think Joe Burrow is good at everything. And aside from collegiate accuracy, I don't know that he's great. A-level NFL great at anything, and I think Tua can be a superstar in this league. I would take Tua, but it's got very little to do with Joe Burrow's little hands.
Okay.
Tiny hands.
Okay, sorry.
Come on,
my
Nick.
apologies.
So I agree with you on some of your stance. I like Tua better than I do like Joe Burrow. But I just want to put everyone in Joe Burrow's shoes for a second. Like, I'm the healthy one, and this guy is injured, and you're questioning who you would take, like, he's going to feel some level of disrespect. Like, as an athlete, as people, as competitors, if someone didn't show up and actually perform the way that you're doing it right now, and they did it from home, and they just called in and they were sick, you'd be like, dude, he sounded terrible. He's sick. He can't do what I do. They can't run 12 miles in one day when they got a half mile in 2 weeks. Like, you would feel some way slighted. And all you've done is have success.
One of the greatest single seasons.
All you've done is have success. Joe Burrow he should be the number 1 overall draft pick because he is healthy. Now, that may be the only reason why, because as far as talent level, as far as what these guys can be, that's to be seen. But right now, I'm not taking, if I'm Cincinnati, Tua, and I know my organization needs an overhaul, and I need a guy now, and to give my fan base and to sell tickets and say, oh yeah, we're going to take Tua, but he's not going to play this year, so you got to wait for 2021 or 2022. Like, no, that's not how it works. You take the healthy guy because you understand I needed someone right now that can provide me with some type of lift, some type of boost. That is Joe Burrow.
I just have to ask about the injury, because the injury is what's keeping us really from having a true conversation of who the number 1 guy should be coming out of the draft. He doesn't just have an injury. He's injury prone. He's had a number of injuries. The most recent one, the hip, which now they're saying if he's healthy, he could be, good to go. He's wearing the brace on the knee in that picture there. Do you worry about him coming out? The fact that in college he's really banged up a number of different limbs already, his hip most specifically?
Yes, you worry. Going through the NFL combine, like, I had an ankle injury. I had like an elbow elbow dislocation. They literally, I was in an x-ray room for 8.5 hours because they were trying to MRI as well. Make sure that my ankles were good, make sure every little thing was perfectly fine because this is a huge investment. Now, I was a second-round draft pick. Imagine if you're potentially going to be the #1 draft pick overall. You're going to go above and beyond. You're going to look at Tua and say, I can't take that type of a chance right out the gate, #1 overall, and he's hurt. And sell this to my fan base and say, this is the product that we just bought. This is what we're bringing.
Right.
But wait, we can't use it.
So make the case,
but so here's why you can, is because in order to be successful as the #1 overall pick of the draft at quarterback, you have to turn into a championship level quarterback. I'm not saying you have to win a Super Bowl, but you've got to be a quarterback that's good enough to put your team in contention to compete for them. And who you got to go through if you're Cincinnati? In your division, you have to go through reigning MVP Lamar Jackson, and you're going to have to go through Baker Mayfield, who I believe is going to bounce back after a sensational rookie season and then a bad second year. And by the way, the Steelers are still there. If you get through your division, you are going to have to go through future MVP Deshaun Watson, and then you're going to have to go through reigning Super Bowl MVP Patrick Mahomes. You better have a stud at quarterback. You cannot have a rich man's Andy Dalton. You got to have a guy that can go across the field eye to eye with Deshaun Watson, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and say, man, today I'm the better quarterback. And I think that's Tua, even if you got to wait a year for it. I think I understand your point. There's safety in Joe Burrow, and maybe Joe Burrow will turn into the quarterback that I believe Tua ultimately will be. But I think Tua's upside is too high to pass up on at that spot, especially in you know who you're competing against in the NFL. Players change, quarterbacks don't. Lamar is going to be the quarterback of the Ravens for at a minimum the entirety of whoever they draft their rookie contract. Baker Mayfield's going to be in Cleveland. The Steelers are going to be the damn Steelers no matter who their quarterback is. And then you have Deshaun, who's about to get a 5-year huge extension, and Patrick, who's about to get a 5-year huge extension. Who do you feel like can elevate your franchise to compete with those guys? It's the same thing, by the way, the Houston Texans, what changed their franchise, and I know they haven't had massive playoff success, was they went from also-rans or good but not great Matt Schaub to Deshaun bleeping Watson. Let's go. I know they blew the game, but we can be up 24-0 on the road in a playoff game on Patrick Mahomes. You're going to have the best A-plus option, and to me, that's Tua. The injuries are the only reason that, to me, this isn't an open and shut case.
Drawing a blank. Here we go. It looks like Cam Newton's time in Carolina might be coming to a close, with the Panthers reportedly, quote, open for business on the trade market. Nick, the best trade destination for Cam Newton, in your opinion, would be blank.
The New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, who I don't think have this just nobody's playing wide receiver for them. I think they have legitimate options out there. I'm told by Patriot fans all the time that Julian Edelman's one day going to be a Hall of Famer. I think N'Keal Harry was an excellent collegiate player who, if you get in maybe a little more of a free-flowing offense, then timing, precision, got to be there at 7.5 yards at this exact time, he can become the player we saw him at Arizona State. And I think Cam, with a great coach and a great defense, you can see the Cam Newton we saw a few years ago. So I say the New England Patriots.
I say the Chicago Bears, and I've said this before. I like the Chicago Bears. I like Matt Nagy. I like him as a play caller. I like the guys that they have around him. Robinson, Gabriel, they have pieces that he can go in. An organization and a franchise that has not really had that guy come in at that position and have success. And that they knew they were going to build around and then have some success with. I think Cam would be a great fit.
All right, moving on to Joe Burrow now. The projected #1 overall pick had his hands measured at just 9 inches at the Combine this weekend. No first-round quarterback has had smaller hands since 2008. Greg, the quarterback draft prospect most ready to start week 1 is blank.
most ready to start week one, I mean, it's Joe Burrow because he's healthy. But if there was a healthy Tua, yes, I would say Tua.
Yeah, but your answer is Joe Burrow.
Because he's healthy.
Not healthy.
Yes.
I know, I'm just saying.
Tua should be the number 1 overall pick, I believe.
No, he should not.
He should be the number 1 overall pick, even though he's not ready to start week one. He's not ready to play year one, I don't think. So the answer is Joe Burrow. It has to be because Joe Burrow's could play week one, and I think probably will play week one for whomever drafts him, almost assuredly Cincinnati. Tua, on the other hand, I don't think we will see him all year. I think he's going to take a red shirt year, which would be the smart thing. So even though I would take him despite the red shirt year, the answer to this question is Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow. NFL.com released their top 101 free agents, with Cowboys' Dak Prescott and Amari Cooper numbers 1 and 3 on the list, respectively. But Greg will let you decide. The most captivating free agent is blank.
I like Jadeveon Clowney. With what he was able to do with Seattle Seahawks, I like his ability to be a game breaker. When he decides, and he decided last year that he can do it every single play, he's something special. And I think any team that's able to wrap their arms around that and acquire that talent, they're going to be better.
I think Clowney's a star. I think the knock on him in Houston was unfair for intermittent effort. He is one of the best run defenders at his position in football. He doesn't get credit for that. But to me, this is insane. It's an insane question. The most captivating free agent? The greatest football player of all time is a free agent. So that is the most captivating free agent. I feel like maybe on this show we talk a little bit too much about Dak's free agency. We cannot talk enough about Tom Brady's free agency. It is, to me, one of the most fascinating sports stories of the last 5 years that a quarterback who we can't even conceptualize him in another uniform, I believe is going to end up playing next season in another uniform. I don't think he's coming back to New England, and we are going to have franchises changed, multiple franchises changed by this one man's decision. And unlike nearly all the other free agents, Clowney has this as well in his contract, can't be franchise tagged.
Yes.
So these other guys, Dak's a free agent, but maybe not really.
Right.
Brady is a true free agent, and he's the greatest quarterback anybody's ever seen. To me, he's the most captivating.
I'm with you. I like that as well. Clippers hosting the Grizzlies last night. Kawhi Leonard finished with a game-high 25 points, 8 rebounds. And Paul George was back from injury. Not a great night for him, just 7 points. Clippers win, ending their 3-game slide. So, Nick, this duo, Kawhi, PG, are they good enough to go toe-to-toe with the other big duos in the league right now at this point?
No, I mean, I don't think they are because you've got your best player in Kawhi, who is the single biggest injury concern in the league. There's no other way. He either doesn't really like playing basketball, or they are so concerned about him being hurt. He is on, for the 3rd consecutive year, an unprecedented load management setup. 2 years ago, there was the controversy with San Antonio where they said you can play, and he said no, I cannot. Last year, he was a player coming off whatever that was, who sat out 22 games without suffering during the season a major injury. And in the postseason, every series, except for the first round, at different times it was Kawhi's laboring. Now, he didn't miss any games, but you saw it affecting him. And arguably his 2 worst playoff games were games 5 and 6 of the finals, where he clearly was running out of gas. And now this year, he's been on a load management plan unlike anybody else. That's your best player. Your second best player is playing worse and less than any of the other team's second best player, right? And now Paul George, he had double shoulder surgery and then suffered a hamstring injury. And last year was his best year as a pro. He was, I think, 3rd in the MVP voting. So I'm not trying to disrespect Paul George. Just given where his body's at, I have real concerns. So one guy's an injury concern. The other guy has been repeatedly injured this year. The team right now is a game and a half out of the 5 seed. No, I certainly don't think. Who are the best duos? LeBron and Anthony Davis? Giannis and Middleton? Harden and Westbrook? To me, the Clippers are a clear 4th out of those 4 if those are your top 4 duos in basketball. So no, I don't think it's enough, but I've been lower on the Clippers, Sarah, than just about anybody, and we'll see if I'm right, but that's where I feel even after they were sensational last night.
Jenna, I'm going to answer your question. You said right now we're at this point.
Right.
No, we can't say it just because I don't think we have a large enough sample size to even see exactly what they're going to be. They've played 25 games together, 18-7 during that time. I do think, though, as we project into the future and what it's going to look like in the postseason, the fact that our understanding is that Kawhi Leonard is load managing so much for the anticipation that he will be healthy and ready to go in the postseason. We saw that last year in Toronto, and the same seems to be the plan going into this season. However, I think they have the potential to be one of the best duos. You look at LeBron James and Anthony Davis, who I think really are the clear-cut favorite of the best duos. But what surprised me most about not only those two, but the team in general is how quickly they all came together. To me, anytime you have new pieces, new players, despite how good the fit seems on paper, you assume it's going to take some time. For them, it took no time at all. They came out of the gates looking like they've played together for years. With Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, I think those two have a fit because of the versatility, because of the position they play, that they can fit well together. I think they played so well on the court. So I believe that they will eventually be able to be toe-to-toe as one of the best duos in the league. Right now, though, I agree with your assessment that they're right around 3rd or 4th here in the league.
Well, so you got 25 games left in the season. And you saw Kawhi this weekend talk about lack of communication. He thought Landry was going to cut to the basket. Landry went out for a 3 in a critical possession. I think it was 103, couple minutes left. You've also added a bunch of pieces. Reggie Jackson, famously known for selfless winning player. Marcus Morris is a totally stable emotional force. They have been added to the team. Other guys' minutes are going to be, and Kawhi is going to miss time. And by the way, you're the Clippers, your toughest 10 days of the season coming up. Denver, Philly, at OKC, at Houston, and then the Lakers. Those are your next 5. So hopefully we see the team together and we see how they can play together, because last night they were sensational. But I just want to add one other part of this. If they are the 4 seed, as they've been flirting with all year long, and Houston stays where they are, and you get Houston, the Clippers in the first round of the playoffs, let's just say the Clippers win it. I don't know that I'd pick them to win it, but let's just say the Clippers win it. That'd be a long, tough series. You would then we would get Lakers-Clippers. It would just be in round 2 instead of the conference finals. The Lakers would have likely come off their first time load managing all year. Final week of the regular season, Lakers ain't going to have to play at all. First round of the playoffs, they're going to have to play 4 games. So they will have a week off at the end of the regular season, 4 games, and then another week off, as rested as they've been all year, to potentially take on a Clippers team that for the first time all year, it's like, hey guys, everyone's got to play. Listen, I know it stinks. No PTO this week. Got to come in, and the games are going to be hard. That's what they're setting themselves up for. I don't think that is going to end well for them.
And I will argue with you that they have played 32 games without Kawhi Leonard and Paul George playing together this season. They're 3rd in the West. I think for most accounts, many would feel like they're underperforming from what we expected. And they're 1 game back of the number 2 seed Denver. And so to me, I think there's a lot of optimism to think about what they can become in this final stretch and then once they head into the postseason.
And this final stretch is still 25 games for them to sort of figure it all out.
This next 5 is going to be real interesting. You play 5 of the best teams in basketball.
There was one low light of the game we want to highlight. Paul George. What? On the fast break, forget to do the one thing you learn how to do when you're 6 years old. Dribble. 1, 2.
What's the problem here?
Well, I think that they call it a travel.
When did he get off the gather?
Yeah, I like it. I mean, no, I feel like that's legal.
We've seen worse.
But you feel like it's legal?
Travel's
I feel like that's
You're
legal.
into the finger. You
gather
don't mind the traveling. You're the basketball.
Jump step.
Gather. Hold on. Show that again. Show that again, America.
5.
He doesn't have the ball.
No,
now he has the ball.
4.
The other clip is the better one, because when does he actually have possession?
Watch.
So he has possession now.
1, 2.
Jump.
You guys.
Yeah, I like it.
What kind of counting is that?
What do you mean, what type of counting is that?
5 steps.
No. I think that's legal. I'm on Team Paul George on this, and he needed every basket he could get yesterday. What was Paul George? Paul George had a rough game. It was 3 of 11. If they call that, I mean, now he's 2 of 10.
Oh, I know what you're doing.
It was a blowout.
What am I doing?
You're joshing me. That's what you're doing.
Joshing you?
Yeah, that's what you're doing.
I'm with it.
How
He's
could you
not
be
with it.
with
He
it?
may be facetious. I'm with it.
Thank you.
It's like a
we
little
got
bit of a
one
bubble
hooper on the
gather.
desk. It ain't me. It
Gotta
ain't
take a
Jenna
break.
Syracuse.
I did
She
play
says it's legal. Oh.
basketball sophomore season in high school. My
Be a
coach.
little more lenient.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern.